Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. I've just sat down for a conversation with Jaron Soh. Jaron is the founder of Voda, the LGBTQIA plus mental wellness app. And its mission is to create a better service when it comes to mental health and well-being, support and regulation for queer people. And it was great hearing Jaron's drive and determination when it comes to tech, entrepreneurship and innovation, but also his story really highlights the realities of growing up as a queer kid, the shame, the feelings of not belonging, and how you work through them and how they show up later in life. And a trigger warning for those listening that this might be a hard conversation for you to listen to, as are some of the other conversations that I've been having with people on this podcast. And it really is essential parts of our origin stories that we have to live with and again process and work on our healing. So I hope you take a lot from the episode. It's also littered with Jaron's joy for community and what he does that really shines through and what he's putting out there in the world, and his chosen family, and a lot of acceptance. So enjoy and let me know what you think. Cheers. Hey Jaron, welcome to Pause and Rewind.
Hi Neil, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Now, we met a couple of years ago at Series Q, which is an event for entrepreneurs and innovators. And that is exactly how I would talk about you to people. You are the founder of Voda, the LGBTQI plus mental health wellness app. And I love the tagline, building the future of inclusive mental health support. What does that look like? What does it mean? Tell everyone all about Voda.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be on the podcast and appreciate the opportunity to share more about our work. So Voda is the mental health app designed by and for the LGBT community. We are designed with a panel of 7 LGBT therapists who identify across a spectrum of gender, ethnicity, sexuality, and neurodivergence. So we really have the intersectional lens covered on the app. What we do differently from other mental health apps is we look at LGBT specific issues that other apps don't cover. So things like coming out, gender dysphoria, but also dealing with shame and stigma. So there are a lot of mainstream mental health apps out there. People know like Calm or Headspace, for example, but a lot of these apps don't really look at issues from a queer specific lens and don't usually consider things only from a cis-normative and heteronormative perspective.
Fantastic. And what has been the take up for the app? What's the take up been like? What's been some of the best feedback that you've heard so far?
Mm. So we're still a really young app. We are now inching close to about 10,000 users. So most of our users are from the UK and then afterwards from the US. The take up's been really great, to be honest. We're a very young, small team. Full time is just me and my co-founder. And then we have an in-house lead therapist and then 6 other therapists that support the lead therapist. Very much a initiative that's by and for the community. But yeah, what we've been really heartened so far is the response from from our community itself. A lot of people have said, "Oh, we've not seen something like this," and that they could really tell that it's designed by the community, from the way that we tackle topics, and sometimes through the breadth of topics that we have as well that other apps won't cover.
Fantastic. Why did you decide, launching a startup is really hard work. What was the kind of like the main reasoning for wanting to launch something like Voda?
Mm. So I've always been involved in tech and startups. So I launched my first startup while I was a student at the LSE when I first moved to the UK. And I've been involved in tech and startups since. I think for me, I love building something from scratch. I love, I'm a self-taught product designer, so I can build websites, I can build apps, I can build web apps, mobile apps. And for me, there's just something fun and magical about there wasn't something before, and now we build a team comes together and build something that is ours where there was none beforehand. That's what I like about tech and startups. My parents were both entrepreneurs as well, so I've kind of seen them from a very young age work extremely hard to get to where they are. And so I think that inspires me a lot too.
They must be so proud of you for what you have put out there into the world. And you are award winning as well. It's an award-winning app. I'm gonna big you up here. It's an awarding winning app. I'm not gonna miss an opportunity to shout about that.
Thank you. Yes. So yeah, we were really shocked and happy to win a Pink News Award last year. So you were the organizer. You organized the Pink News Award last year,
Yeah,
right?
but I didn't organize your win. Your app
Yes.
did that. So like, it was put to a vote. So it's just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we didn't expect to win, so I kind of just went and I was just telling my friends, I don't think we're gonna win. Also because I got a ticket, like just one ticket for the event, right? And I was sitting right next to the door. I was like, okay, then I'm gonna put someone that wins right next to the door, all the way at the back. That's really far from everywhere else. But then when it did happen, I was so pleasantly surprised and so happy. And yeah, it feels like things have really taken off in the last 6 months for us. It took us a little while to get to where we are, but now it feels like we're seeing really good traction, really good feedback from people in the industry and people from LGBT charities locally, and also from users. So I'm really happy.
That's wonderful. What you're putting out there is absolutely brilliant. So what does the world look like for Jaron So right now?
What does the world look like for me right now?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like we're in a really good space to kind of get to the next level. So for Voda, we recently closed our first investment round as well. Uh, so about 3, 4 weeks ago, we closed our investment round. It's been a really tough climate to raise investment funding for
Mm.
tech companies and also consumer app companies like us. Um, I'm really happy that we now have a very intersectional roster of investors on board as well. Most of our investors are part of the community, so and it's diverse too. So with cisgender people, trans people, non-binary people, we got men, women, we got yeah. I'm just really glad to have a really diverse array of investors on board who are kind of also putting their money where their mouth is. They say want to support impact companies, and they are doing that. So I think the future now for us is really figuring out how to build something that users really want and really need, and how can we support LGBT people in their mental health and give them the tools to self-regulate and heal from trauma. I think, for Voda, we started Voda because I experienced so much gay shame growing up, and what really helped me was therapy. And so, I wanted to create Voda as a way for people to access therapeutic tools to self-regulate, heal from trauma. But at the same time, in the long term, we're going to build Voda into something that reduces also helps reduce the need for LGBT people to self-regulate in the first place. So as we grow, as we get more revenue, more users, scale around the world, we also want to support LGBT activists, LGBT charities, LGBT organizations in the fight for, decriminalizing homosexuality, and fighting for marriage equality.
Amazing. And all of that is so needed right now, particularly for queer folk looking after the mental health. And how about for you personally? What else is going on?
Mm. For me personally, uh, I'm happy where my life is at the moment. I feel like my gay job is my day job. And
Yeah.
so often, most of the time, what I talk about is Voda. I think for me, my long-term goal, like I've kind of figured out what I want for my long-term goal recently. And that is in the next few decades, I want to, be back in Singapore and fight for marriage equality in Singapore. So Singapore recently last year decriminalized homosexuality. Um, it's never been enforced in the sense that yes, technically there was a law that prohibited sex between men, but the government also came out and said have not enforced that law for I think decades. But they still kept that in there as a sort of like a signal to society, and they finally
Mm.
moved that last year. Um, but we're still really far away from equal marriage for equal rights in Singapore. There's still a lot of discrimination, a lot of hate, and a lot of stigma. And yeah, like London and the UK gave me a taste of what it means to be able to live as myself freely. And and yeah, so I want to be able to do my part in the long term and go back home and fight for that because I think, regardless of whether you're going to get married or not, but having the right to, I think is extremely important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've hit fast forward there. Long-term goals. Amazing to hear those. But for now, are you ready to press pause and rewind?
Yes.
Let's do this. Take me back. Tell me all about little Jaron.
Sure. Um, yeah, so I think was very shy, unconfident, and sensitive kid growing up in Singapore. So I'm come from quite a working class background. So um, my parents were very loving parents, but at the same time, when I was young, they were always very busy, so always mostly not at home. Um, but we always had food on the table, which is great. Uh, but yeah, I would say I was your stereotypical, I think, like shy, anxious kid. Um, didn't have many friends as a young kid. But I spent a lot of time by myself, which I think why I'm still like very much in my head as an adult.
What are some of your favorite anecdotes or earliest memories that you look back on?
Yeah, I think a lot of my earliest memories were related to, I think I internalized a lot from a young age that
Mm.
who I was not okay. I felt constantly criticized by as loving as my parents were constantly criticized about who I was. One of my earliest memories is like my parents making me walk in front of my auntie and uncles because I was walking too much like a girl. So I was like
Okay.
walking back and forth, and I was like really annoyed and I was really sad. I'm like, why am I'm not walking properly? I had like spring in my step, I guess. And so like they were trying to like make me walk, but I think that's when I internalized a lot of the shame, and I think I was never really put down explicitly, but I felt from the way that adults were treating me that, they suspected I was gay. I remember hearing about it, like saying, "Oh, do you think Jaron is?" You know, and I think the implication, even before I knew what being gay was that I was too feminine a boy. And I constantly felt like I had to edit and police myself. And a lot of that then meant I was constantly in my head so much. And I felt like from a young age that I wasn't enough for the adults around me.
I mean, that is hard. And as queer kids, we often, it's come up quite a few I know I've only done a few podcasts and it's been a constant theme is that we have to kind of police ourselves because the way we speak, the way we move, it is different.
Yeah.
And we feel it, other people feel it. There's something because you're not mentally equipped to deal with knowing that you're different, but then un not understanding why you have to be that way.
Yeah. And I think I just felt like I wasn't accepted for who I was. I think that was what was missing. I think I was probably quite a happy kid until I started getting messages from like everyone around me. Like
Mm.
I wasn't okay. Um, yeah.
What age do you think that started?
Mm, maybe like 5, 6 onwards, I already felt like I like the things that I like, I wasn't able to like. I wanted to play with toys that my two older sisters had, and I can't. I had to play with like toys that were for boys. It's quite cliche that way. Um, yeah.
That really resonates. It really resonates. And just other people trying to dull who you are has
Mm,
such a detrimental effect for such a long time afterwards.
yeah.
I'm 41 and I feel more in tune with little Neil now and who I recognize myself for how I was than I ever have done.
100%. And that is a lot actually what a lot of the work I do for myself in therapy, but also now on a daily basis is kind of like trying to parent my inner child. I think a lot of me, a lot of my adulthood now is accepting that I didn't have the love that I needed as a child and how that impacted me to this day and how that impacts my relationships with work, with my friends, romantic partners, with alcohol, for example. I think that yeah, it really cascades to where we are today. But I think now I think there was a point in my life when I was younger where I was really angsty about uh, angry with my parents because I didn't get the love from them that I wanted in the way that I wanted. And adulthood now is about giving myself the love that I wish that my parents gave me.
Have you been able to do that?
Bit by bit, it's practice, I guess.
It's practice. It's practice. And, I feel like we've jumped straight in here, but I want to ask, like, how are things with your parents now? Like, have you been able to have those courageous conversations with your parents and actually say it to them and your
Mm.
family?
Yeah, baby steps. So I came out mm, to my siblings around, I think, 18, 19, but I regretted right away. But I only came out to my mom and dad at 28,
Okay.
one this year. So I only came out to them like 3 years ago. And it's still a work in progress. I think when I first came out, I was happy to share a little bit more about myself. Um, I was in a relationship at the time, and um, we eventually broke up, but I never had a chance to introduce him to my parents. But I think my parents are in different places, but I've kind of accepted the positions they're in, and I don't take it personally. So my mom was more curious, so she would ask me about relationships, and she wants to know about who I'm seeing and how I'm doing. When I broke up with my ex, she was very concerned. She was calling me and making sure I was fine because she's really afraid of me being alone in London and doing something silly.
Hmm.
If I was too depressed over the breakup, but actually I processed the breakup just fine because of my friends who rallied around me. As for my dad, it's very hard for him still. Um, so I think after I came out, he became a bit more. Um, I think kind of it's hard how I think parents process. So I'm the only son and youngest son, and in Asian cultures, it's really important that you know um, that uh, that the son has kids and kind of like passes on the family name.
Hmm.
And so there's constantly that I think pressure still from my family. My dad came to my room last year when I was back in Singapore, and he looked really apologetic, looking at the floor. He was going to the temple, and I was like, "What's up?" And he's like, he just looked at me. He's like, "Do you want us to pray for you to be normal?" And my heart just
Okay.
because back then I was already out for a little while and I thought we were fine with it and I thought he'd accepted me. And then I was also, I think, in the family WhatsApp group, I was kind of sharing more information about what I was doing. But after that incident, I then started being a lot more quiet again. I started sharing a lot less about my life and, about my gay life. But then my whole life is gay because my job is gay. When
Yep.
I'm for LGBT people, most of my friends are queer. Like that made me share a lot less with them. And then they got a lot more. I think I think when I came out, I thought the walls I built around me from my parents would come down, but actually, they've come down slightly, but it's still a work in progress. But I've stopped resenting them or resenting the situation, but instead trying to practice acceptance of the situation because a lot of things are out of my control. So how my mom and dad's internalized homophobia, it's a function of their own upbringing, the society that they live in. Um, when my dad said, do you want us to pray for you and be normal? I just had so many things to say that I couldn't articulate.
Yeah.
I wish he knew how happy I am. I wish he knew the wonderful romantic relationships I've been in. I wish he knew the wonderful chosen family I have around me, my friends who rally around me, and I wish he knew how meaningful my work is and all the success I've had with it as well. Um, but but at the same time, I'm also grateful for that they're trying their best to love me the way that they can. So it all comes from good intentions. And so in that case, I am not resentful and even though there is space for sadness in there, I think I'm
Hmm.
still quite sad about the situation. But at the same time, I'm grateful that, they're happy and healthy. Um, and that we're talking that, I see them every year. I'm gonna see them later this week. They're gonna come to the UK
Okay.
so that's nice.
It's really, I can hear the love that you have for them. But I can hear the sadness. And I think it's really gracious of you to be able to accept that they're on a journey.
Mm.
But what I really admire is that you're not prepared to compromise your queer joy.
Oh, thank you. I think it's a bit, yeah, difficult. I feel like I'm always self-editing with them as well because
Yeah.
I'm conscious. So in a sense, even though things have improved since my childhood, I am still kind of stuck in that role of when I was a kid. I think perhaps I'm still so similar to 12-year-old me that's constantly hiding who I was and not telling them anything about my life. I was quite a depressed and anxious kid, and my parents, when I was younger, would be like, "Well, what's wrong?" But like, I couldn't tell them what was wrong because the only thing, because that would have outed me to them. And so right now, even then, I think it's still quite hard for me to share myself with them. Even for my, two sisters who I'm super close with, we had an article in Forbes about my journey in starting Voda. They were quite happy, but at the same time, they were quite upset when they read it. They're like, "Oh, we didn't know you were struggling for so long." Um, so yeah, it is a balance, but there is a lot of love there.
Yeah.
And I think what's important, I think for me, is that I know that they did the best they could with the
Yeah.
resources that they had. And my parents both have a lot of their own traumas growing up as well. And so I'm very understanding of like they're meeting me where they are the best that they can
Yeah.
be. Though it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that, you know, but I've also come to this sense that I think in the past there will be a version of me that will just try to give them what they want because I love them and I want them to be happy. But I'm now more and more at a stage where, I just need to I live most of my life and my childhood trying to be a version of me that will be acceptable to them. I think now I need to start learning my 30s is about how to learn to live life for myself rather than for somebody else.
That's it, because your happiness matters too. And ultimately you have to live your life. And hopefully they will meet you where you need them to meet you at some point, because you deserve that. And unfortunately, as queer people, gosh, we are not always blessed with the family that we deserve or need at different times. And you touched on this already, why chosen family is so important.
Mm, yeah, makes
So
sense.
important for us queer people. Tell me a little bit about school. You said you're quiet and shy. What do you remember at school about finding your own kind of feet in school and figuring out what you wanted to do with life?
Mm. I mean, so when I was in primary school, yeah, primary school was tough because I was quite like feminine boy,
Mm.
and I was bullied quite a little bit in primary school. There was this girl. I mean, thinking about it, I think she's like a repressed homo like me. But we were in a Catholic school, but there was this school. The girl I remember, she would just come to class and she'd be like pointing at me, and she's like, "You're gay, and you're gonna burn in hell."
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I'm just like, it's so it. But she's quite butch as well. But she's from a very religious family, so my understanding of it today is more of like this person. When we really dislike somebody else, often it's because they have qualities that we repress in ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
so I have no animosity against her, I suppose. But yeah, I think that was a lot of my primary school, which is not great. So a lot of anxiety. Um, and also I remember once, I did have friends. If someone was like went to the teacher was like, hey, like she keeps calling him gay, um, and that he's going to hell. And then the teacher told off and said, well, stop saying he's going to hell. You don't know he's actually gay.
Yeah.
My heart just sank again. I was like, fuck, now I have to hide it from every single person around me. And I think for a lot of young queer people growing up in societies like Singapore, I think school is when you realize and internalize that who you are is not okay. And yeah, I think that's when the many years of chronic shame began. Secondary school was a little bit better. I was still in the closet, but at least I found a really good tribe of friends around me. So from 13 to 16, I had a really good group of friends. Um, we were all straight then. Actually, most people, like, I had a group of like five people, and four ended up queer. Like, So I
You
guess we
found
all
a tribe.
yeah. So my best friend in secondary school, I remember we were like I guess like 15, and then he was like, "Are you gay?" I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Are you gay?" He's like, "No." And then years later we met at the gay bar, you know.
There.
Uh, yeah.
Still friends?
I was still really good friends. So he was really like my chaperone when I first came out in Singapore. I made sure I got eased in the gay community. He started like out in the scene a little bit earlier than me. Um, yeah, and we're still really close today now that we're in our 30s. Uh,
How
yeah.
much of this experience of your experience of your younger years do you think has shaped what you're doing now, that being someone who is so caring and wants to create something that makes people feel safe, makes people feel a sense of belonging and cared for?
Hmm. Yeah, I think like 100% of it. I'm always been drawn to, I guess when I got into university, I wanted to work in development or in charities. Um, I think from a young age, a lot of queer people know what it feels like to be othered, to be
Yes.
excluded. And that's why you get so many LGBT people that works in impact sectors, diversity, inclusion sectors. We fight for causes that are, we fight for queer rights, but we also resonate with people who are asylum seekers. We also resonate with with all kinds of marginalized communities. That's why you have the movement of people like what fighting queers for Palestine, because we know what it feels like to be other. We know what it feels like to be left behind, and a lot of us still carry that pain from our childhood. Um, and I think in that sense, that sense of being other then becomes our superpower because I think so many queer people are have so much empathy and so much care for those around me, for around us. And for me as well, I think because I was always in my head as a kid and watching out and hyper vigilant and editing myself, I'm very much attuned to I think the needs and emotions of those around me. So if I go, for example, to a networking event, I could tell who looks uncomfortable and I'll go talk to them.
Hmm.
Same at a party, I will do that as well. I think that in a sense, that pain then becomes our superpower.
When were you able to start showing up for yourself and kind of like getting out of your head a little bit more?
Hmm. I think I'm still in a journey with that. I think, yeah, I think when I started therapy was when I was able to first. I think it all starts with self-awareness, right?
Mm.
And awareness that we have a problem. And I think a lot of queer people have dysfunctional relationships. For example, it could be alcohol, or drugs, right?
Yep.
It
Or
could also
people.
be, yeah, or like, yeah, a string of dysfunctional romantic relationships,
Hmm.
dysfunctional relationships with work. Some queer people are workaholics. Um, I think it's I think for me, when I started going to therapy was when I realized, oh, I was running. I'm not able to kind of just sit by myself. I have to always distract myself with something else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so and
Yeah.
that's why I started Voda really because I realized how much therapy made me understand the impact of my actions on myself, how my past was affecting my present, and how I was constantly running away from from my like facing myself by obsessing over work or alcohol or romantic relationships.
Yeah. No, I mean, this again, very, very much resonates with me and how I've been in the past. Let's take it back a notch. Let's go to uni. So what did you do at uni? What was that like for you? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, university was great. I think so. I was able to come to the UK to study because I did quite well in school, and I
And you
think
went to LSE?
yes. And yeah, I had nothing else going on in my life in before university, so all I did was study, and it was the only way I could derive any sort of semblance of self-esteem. So I was always quite proud of the fact that I was doing quite well in school, and I felt like it was pleasing my parents. So I was also very happy to be doing well in school. I'm a very self-motivated person. Even when I was in school, my mom had to come to my room like, you need to go to bed. It's like 4 a.m. Like, why is he studying? And I still have that kind of work ethic out today. I don't work till like midnight nowadays anymore, but I have that inner drive to just work very hard. So university was great for me. I really thrived on, I think I slowly found my confidence, but I kind of derived it mostly from academia and running societies. So I was running two societies in university. It also gave me the first taste of being able to be who I am. So um, coming to London for the first time was when I was wow, I was able to go to gay clubs, um, all these amazing queer venues, and really explore who I was for the first time, and not have to over the look, not having to look back over my shoulder to see if there was someone there that I knew. Um, so yeah, I really thrived in the freedom. I really, as much as I love my family, it was really nice to just come to the UK and just be who I am for the first time and not have to edit myself.
That that not looking over your shoulder thing and not having to worry about it. I went to UCL, so literally just down the road from LSE, and that freedom. I mean, I don't know about you, but I went wild at university and big and just absolutely like there were weeks where I didn't see daylight. Being an out student in London is fucking amazing, isn't it?
Mm, mm. And yeah, and just meeting international people from all around the world.
Yeah,
That was great. It's
yeah,
too yeah. I'm in my
yeah.
third year in university, so I never had a high school sweetheart. Have you had a? Do you have like? Did you have a high school sweetheart?
Not really.
Mm,
I
yeah.
mean, someone at college, and that was a really dysfunctional relationship that probably has managed to fuck up every relationship since. So, but it was good being at university and just being able to be queer and get off with people and just be a run around London being how you're
Mm,
supposed to be when you're that age.
yeah, because I feel like a lot of queer people, like, when we look at TV shows like Hot Stuff, but like they're able to have queer love in secondary school. It's like it's so different from like a lot of I think where people only have the first taste in university. But even university, I realized even like now, years on, there were so many friends I have who were in the closet in university
Yeah.
still. Yeah, even in the UK where it's supposedly more liberal, a lot of people, you know, still find it difficult to come out.
Yeah, no, definitely met some people and met people on the scene that weren't out. I mean, I graduated probably along quite a while before you went to university, and definitely those experiences. I think they're still happening now, though it feels better and it feels like people are having, it feels like more people are able to have that childhood sweetheart at a younger age, but it definitely wasn't something that I dreamed would happen. I remember watching Heartstoppers recently. I don't know whether you watched it or not, but just my first feeling when I watched it was, oh, I'm not enjoying this. Who are these young kids kind of having a relationship while they're at school? And then I realized that it kind of came from resentment and actually being a little bit of jealousy and feeling a bit like kind of that's unfair. Why didn't I get to have that?
Yeah, actually, I've not watched it. I heard a lot about it. I'm like also can't relate.
Definitely, Rock, definitely worth a watch. What
Mm,
happens after university for you?
mm. So after university, I started working, I guess. I Shortly after university, I joined a Antler, which is a venture capital studio, and I invested in my first company. It was a very, it was a business to business hiring platform. It wasn't something I was passionate for,
Mm,
but it was something that, gave me the first taste of what it means to raise funding from investors. It gave me, it taught me what I needed to learn to do what I'm doing for Voda today. So it was the experience, and it took a chance on me. Right after university, they're like, "Yeah, you're quite scrappy." I started a company uh, in university, and they kind of liked that I was young and scrappy, and so they took a chance on me. And I started a company with someone that used to work at Uber, and we basically got a bit of funding, and that company exited last year. But about 3 years into running that company, I came out to my mom and dad, and that's when I was like, okay, now my day job became my gay job. And then that's when I left that company and started Voda.
that's when Voda was born. Amazing. And where did that confidence come from? Because obviously you said how you were quite shy and stuff, but yet it takes quite a lot of balls to kind of go off and start a company and be that kind of self-assured and confident of actually this is what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Um, I I think only started feeling more confident in what I do in recent months. Uh, to be honest, yeah, I think. even back then, I've always struggled with social anxiety. So even though I was having fun in university, for example, or even in my late 20s, I remember still going to parties and I'll be like, actually, I'm overstimulated and I'm in the toilet and like I'm feeling anxious and like knocking, like, get out. I'm just like doing breathing exercises in the toilet and when it come out. I think only in recent like a year or so when I started to feel more at ease. Um, I think what helped me is, I guess, continue work with therapy, um, breath work, mindfulness exercises, but also I think practicing acceptance of the situation. So knowing that I'm scared, but actually I can be scared and do it too. And I think also with practice, you get less nervous. So I used to get really anxious before a pitch, but now that I think I've done hundreds of pitches, so I probably pitch 200 plus investors before we close our round. And so it's kind of like getting that number of rejections over time. I just kind of you build the experience up over time. And also I think learning to detach from the outcome. Like I'll just go on a phone call with a potential investor and just do the best I can and not be overly attached into like, oh, this person has invested in me. And so then not internalizing the rejection if the rejection does come along.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's I look back at myself a bit like you, not the most outgoing and quite shy and stuff. And to me now, and I'm hosting events and such, but it took me, I had to do the work to get there. And it sounds like you've done a lot of the work that needed to happen for you to get to where you are now.
Okay, I guess so. But I think I've also kind of accepted like my image of myself. I'm also very happy with the image I have of myself in the sense that I know I am not the archetype of a typical founder or CEO. I'm not this charismatic salesperson that could sell to anyone in the room. But to be honest, a lot of my investors, why they came on board is like, we like that you are slightly anxious and you are quite vulnerable. And but but I speak my mind and
Yeah.
I work really hard and I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
So even though I am not the archetype of like this uh, charismatic CEO that always says the right thing, sometimes there's an advantage because people don't like if someone's just like that, maybe they don't trust them as much, perhaps.
Yeah. But also, you have a fundamental, true, authentic belief in what you're doing as well. And that shines through in how you carry Voda, in how you talk about Voda and what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to think that's how we are different and for me, a personal ambition is to showcase that we can build a tech company that's actually for good and lives by the right values. And that's why I've also selected investors that resonate with our values. I've pitched Voda in the beginning. We're like, wow, there's so much you can do to monetize. You can sell people's data and do A, B, C, D. But I'm like, yeah, well, we're never gonna sell people's data. Like that is not what we want, the kind of company we want to build. Um, so yeah.
Strong ethos. Love that. Was there, we're shaped by our failures as much as we are our successes, right? Was there a moment in your career or before wherever that you look back and think that felt like a failure then, but actually it's really pivotal to who I am now?
Mm, I suppose, but because because I've always feel like rejection or failure is just redirection. I think
Mm,
I'm lucky in the sense that the times when things have not worked out and I really wanted it, actually by continuing to put in the work, something better came along. For example, I think August last year, we almost got an investment offer, and I was really sad when actually it finally didn't come through, and that happened twice. And I was quite devastated. And back then I was really sad and because we were working so hard for so long, but I continued anyway. But I allowed myself to feel that sadness and disappointment of the rejections. And then come October, we had a much better investment offer come along. So sometimes that rejection is redirection. You only really fail if you stop trying. Um, yeah. And then even, for example, and even for my like failed relationships, you talk about romantic love, right? All my failed relationships have taught me something new, and all my failed relationships have led me into something better and like new friendships and new connections that I wouldn't have dreamed of. And lastly, even my gay shame, like all the pain of growing up gay in Singapore, led me to what I'm doing now today, which I really, really, really love.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I want to have changed any of those
Yeah.
things.
So yeah, and, you harness it and you do something with it. And I guess there is success in that. Does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm successful now, but I'm also because I guess success is not something that I know what I want to achieve in this world, I suppose. I guess what
Mm.
success looks like. But in terms of like financial successes or career successes, is not something that is the core of what drives me. Um, but I think happiness probably looks like and feel like what it feels like for me now. I feel like I'm really lucky to be in a in a stage of my life where I'm very happy with the friendships and connections I have around me. I'm very happy to have a great co-founder and team to work on Voda with, all of whom care so deeply about the mission of what we're doing. Um, and yeah, I think happiness is in the journey. So like it's really important for us not to be so focused on just looking at the end goal of where we want to get to. So I want to build a big company, great company that helps people around the world. But at the same time, the happiness is in appreciating the journey and the everyday challenges and finding the magic in what we do. Something in Voda we talk about a lot is play. Is like we want to and also have fun. Like things are really difficult and sometimes things go really badly, but then there's also so many elements of fun that we could have when we're building a company. And that's something that me and my team feel really strongly about. And we're in a very lucky position where we are also we're getting paid to do something that we care a lot about and we're good at. Mm.
There's a real joy in that, and people lose sight of the importance of fun and laughter.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get so obsessed with like they want to get they want to buy this house or they want to win this award, they want to get on this list or that list, and then they forget about the little things around them. Like I recently ended a relationship and I was really sad for a while, and I guess I'm still experiencing that sadness, but I think happiness is about making space for the sadness and accepting that sadness, but also taking the space to notice everything else around us. So even though I just got dumped a month ago. It's like a 1 month. It's my 1 month dumbversary of my recent heartbreak. But I'm quite sad, but at the same time, I'm also making space for all these wonderful things. Like it's such a wonderful day today. I went out for a walk. I'm so happy with that. I'm meeting some friends today, later today. I'm really happy and excited about that. Even though I'm quite sad about that relationship ending, there are so many other things in my life that I'm really happy for and grateful for.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for sharing. And happy, happiness is in all kinds of small moments, and it's good
Mhm.
that you have friends and stuff around you, and heartbreak. We all know that over time it fades.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's a person or a lesson that has shaped you along the way?
People that shape, I mean, I'm just so lucky to have like all wonderful friends around me. But I think lessons I've learned from my recent heartbreak. So something I've learned from my recent heartbreak was sometimes it's not our partners that hurt us. Sometimes our partners shine a light on where we've been hurt in the past. I mean, if that makes sense. I think sometimes like a
Yeah,
lot of the
awesome.
ways our partners trigger us are shining a light on our childhood wounds. So a lot of what I struggled with in my previous relationship, that huge, was so painful, that pain of abandonment and rejection. But I realized that this person didn't actually really hurt me. They just reminded me of when I was hurt, when I was 5, 6 years old, when I was criticized by the people I cared about. Yeah, so I think that's something I learned from love and heartbreak.
Yeah. How do you action that now? Like, how do you work through those
Mm. How do I work through moments of
moments of those realizations where you think, actually, it's not this. This goes a bit further back.
uh yeah, journal a lot. Uh
Okay.
yeah, I
What
think
does that look like for you?
Uh, yeah, for me, I think I overthink a lot and I ruminate a lot. So for me, what really helps me is just like putting thoughts to paper. But there's no like science to it really. Whenever something crosses my mind, I just would just start writing. free writing. I do it in the morning, in the afternoons. I always carry my journal with me. I have it with me right now, to be honest. And I just, yeah, it just helps me
Just
put and some, yeah,
get it out there.
yeah.
Get it out there. That's yeah, more people need to write. I've discovered writing a bit more recently, and it's so helpful. Um, what are you most proud of so far?
I'm most proud. I guess with Voda, how many people we managed to help along the way. Uh, and it's in all the little things. Um, we have a function on the app where once you've used a few features, you could basically write in feedback and it goes straight to us. And every day we just get lovely messages from people. Like this has helped me so much. This is so affirming, or for the first time I feel understood, validated, and to be able to kind of give a little bit of that support and I guess love to people. It's something I'm really proud of. And and to be able to build something where there was nothing, I think that is something I'm super proud of. And yes, actually the team. So I think the most part of was that being able to convince all these incredible people to work with me. My co-founder Chris, he has a PhD in AI and he sold his previous company for 40 million and he decided to work with me. Our lead therapist, also named Chris, who uses data and pronouns, or um, one of the best psychotherapists, trans psychotherapists in the country, decided to work with us. And we have a bunch of really great LGBT investors who love our mission and believe in what we're doing. So I think I'm the most part of having convinced all these incredible people to somehow work on building this company with me. I think that's something I'm super proud of.
You should be, because those people bought into you. They bought into your idea, but they also bought into you and what you bring to it. So I've loved hearing more about Voda and you. The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Jaron, are you ready for some quick-fire questions?
Yes.
Sure.
I think so. Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Book The Little Prince. So I read it when I was a kid and I really loved it. It's a very simple book. Could be quite cliche, but I really love it. I have two tattoos about the Little Prince.
Okay.
Me. So the first one I got when I was 21, I got it behind my heart. It's
Okay.
what is essential is invisible to the eye. And the second one is the fox. It's a figure in the book. Yeah. So I
So
got it all.
people need to look up The Little Prince. What is it? What are the main what were your main takeaways? Why did you love it so much?
I think the book is such a simple book and it's supposed to be a children's book, but I read it maybe once a year, sometimes once every 2 years, and each time I read it, I get a new appreciation of it. It it brings up the absurd in sometimes human lives as well, the absurdities of some of the jobs that we have, um, and how sometimes we are so self-important because we have this title of like I don't know, you're an investment banker, you make a lot of money, and you think you're God's gift to the world, but really, what good are you doing to the world? No offense to investment bankers listening in,
That's
but
okay.
like how sometimes we are so obsessed with labels and titles and numbers, and but what's really important, in life, it's very cliche, is love. It's the care we give to people around us. It's the time we spent with those that we care about. I think it goes back to the basics, and that's
Yeah.
why this book really resonates with me.
There's so many simple messages in children's book. I have a little pile behind me here of my favorite children's books, and I read them regularly as well. So I'm with you on that. What's a saying that you live by, and a saying that you'd like to put in the bin?
Mm. Something I live by. There's a saying by the psychologist Carl Rogers, and it's the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, that's when I can change. So for us to change, we need to first accept where we are at. And that's the paradox, right? Like, because sometimes we are so obsessed with self-improvement, we're so obsessed with getting to the next stage where we are. But like for me to grow, I need to first accept my shame and sit with my shame and be its gentle friend before I could release my shame. Um, so that's a saying that I live by. I'm not sure if I have one that I'll put in the bin.
What has been the best adventure of your life so far?
I guess the last 10 years in London. That's it's so different from what I've ever envisioned for myself growing up as a little gay kid in Singapore. Um, yeah, and the wonderful people I've met and the life I've been able to build today, being able to build Voda and work in LGBT mental health and yeah, it's been an adventure so far and I'm really happy.
Lovely, amazing. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Yeah, it's shame, joy, and love.
Shame, joy, and love.
I guess yeah, I think those are just recurring themes in my life. I'm not sure how to relate to each other. Um, but I guess yeah, it's you can only really love yourself once you start to accept the shame or be aware of the shame that you're carrying, and then slowly begin to release it.
Yeah.
And being aware of your own shame helps you love other people better as well, because then you could have more empathy for them when um they're experiencing that.
Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
Getting the next stage of growth for Voda, really getting our hits down. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up with the app. Uh, and yeah, just the next 12 months are focusing on growth for the company. I think that's yeah, I'm not sure how exciting that sounds, but I'm really excited to work on it with the team.
No, it's like I mean, I can, it's amazing that you're so excited about something that you've built. So absolutely. What brings you joy? It's one of your words to describe your origin story. What brings you joy?
Uh, Being able to work on what I do, but also the simple things. I love to have friends around. I love to cook for my friends. So I think, you know, food, making food for someone else is an act of joy. Uh, yeah.
What's the dish that you're making for someone?
Oof. I love trying new things. Like I love to look stuff on Instagram and just save it and try to make it. Trying to make a lot more Asian dishes recently. Like Hainan chicken rice. We had that. Like there's a really popular dish in Singapore, or like roast duck rice, or yeah, whatever I see on Instagram, and I'll try to replicate it for friends.
That's amazing. I wish I was that adventurous. What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to carve out a career in inclusion or like yourself, build something that's going to kind of create an inclusive space and tool for everyone?
Mm. It's really important to put yourself out there, and it's not networking. For me, I didn't have any experience in the LGBT space or the mental health space before I started Voda. We were in a completely different space altogether. I think what's important is to start and continuing to put in the work. And over time, I think people start to notice. And also don't be afraid of getting things wrong. I think what really scared me about starting Voda in the past was like I was so afraid of getting things wrong and then getting canceled. I think what's really important is to understand that you will get things wrong, especially in like diversity inclusion. But what's important is that you recognize, you do your best not to get it wrong, but then when you do get it wrong, you actually apologize and you basically adapt. I think for us, that's kind of like a tenet for Voda is like we recognize that we might sometimes get something wrong, but then we have a commitment to recognizing that and then fixing it.
Amazing. And finally, do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
I guess it's finding what you're passionate for and merging that with what you're good at. I think often passion is not enough. You need to, and then if there are things that you're not good at, if you're looking to start a company like me, find co-founders or team members that have complementary skill sets. So I think what's very lucky for me is me and my co-founder are both very different people and with very complementary skills. Um, But what we do share is we have very similar values and work ethics. So that's why I think we make such a good co-founding team.
Amazing. Well, I have loved hearing more about Voda. As I've said many times, I love what you do. You deserve all the kudos for all the work that you put in to build what you have. But also, I've loved hearing more about you. So thank you so much for joining Pause and Rewind. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and hopefully see you soon. I'm sure we'll bump into each other at a Pride event or come on a hike.
Yes, or one of your House of Happiness events.
Yes, come party at the House of Happiness. You're always welcome. I'll see you soon. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
See you soon. Thanks, Neil.
Jaron, thank you so much for joining me for Pause and Rewind. I hope that you really took a lot on from this episode in terms of what it is like to grow up as a queer kid and knowing that you are different. As I said in my intro, it is a common theme for LGBTQ people to know that there is something different about them. And the difference that families and loved ones can make with acceptance is unreal. And unfortunately, for many of us, we don't always get that. And so our reliance on therapy, chosen family, and having to navigate the world carrying a lot of shame and stigma and sadness is a reality, but we find our joy elsewhere because we have to be creative about how we heal and how we access that and tap into it when we need it. So as again, love what Jaron is putting out there in the world. Do look up Voda. It is a great tool, a resource, a sense of support, and there is so much love, care, and consideration behind what they're doing with Jaron and the team. So hope you enjoyed this episode of Pause and Rewind. Thank you so much for tuning in and stay tuned for more amazing, courageous conversations. Thank you.